Hey, my name is Dr. Dave Hawley, and I am an environmental scientist, and I'm also the head of photobiological research and development at Fluence. Today I want to talk about red light. Now, historically, Fluence has been known as a white light company, if not the white light company. We were the company that for years and years and years were promoting the idea that white light was better for all things in cannabis cultivation. We have a spectrum called VisuSpec Indoor, which over the passage of time has had a name simplification just down to R4. And this is the spectrum that you see most often in the cannabis market, whether it's got a Fluence brand on it or somebody else has taken some heavy inspiration from it. R4 has become the de facto spectrum in cannabis. For a long time, we said that this was the best solution in cannabis cultivation because white light penetrates deeper into the canopy, and blue and red photons are more likely to get absorbed at the top of the canopy, not penetrate deep, and therefore not yield as high a net photosynthesis as something like white. Now, in practice, what we find is that that's not all that true in most commercial facilities. I think that there's probably still some truth to that in very dense canopies, but that particular nugget of knowledge actually not that relevant to commercial production. The thing is, the first couple of years that I was with the company, we were doing a lot of spectrum research on cannabis. And one of the first studies that we did was comparing 4 different spectra for cannabis yield and quality as it pertains to cannabinoid and terpene biosynthesis. And what we saw was that across 3 cultivars, which at the time was Skunk, Bluebonnet, and Blue Dream, white light just yielded a heck of a lot better. We had like 17% greater yield using R4 than with the other spectra. So this supported the theory that white light was better for commercial cannabis production. Now, with the passage of time, we did more research and we tested more cultivars. And in the next study, we saw that there was still a significant difference in yield and that the white light was still yielding significantly higher. But the difference was only about 8%. And so we adjusted our messaging then. And then as time goes on, again, we tested more cultivars, more styles of growing. And eventually what we saw was that it turns out white light really wasn't yielding any higher at all than something with like 80% red, for instance. And chemistry was pretty similar across the board, regardless of spectrum. So that was interesting. But what we saw was that, yes, spectra with high red do yield about the same as spectra with high, just kind of white, and the cannabinoid and terpene profiles are going to be similar, if not exactly the same. But what we saw was that when you use too much red, you induce photobleaching or white tips, which is where the inflorescences at the top of your canopy turn white, and that has really poor market value. So that's no good. So then we spent a little while trying to figure out at what points during development is too much red really too much. Right. So said differently, we wanted to know if there were any stages in development where you could use high red and not induce photobleaching. The reason that we care about this is because red photons are cheap to produce. So if you're a grower and you are paying some sort of high energy utility rate, you want a horticultural light with a relatively high red fraction so that your operational costs are low. Right. So that's what we were trying to figure out for you. And what we found was that really, you can use pretty high red during vegetative development because by definition, vegetative development is not flowering. There's no flower to photobleach. And even if you use high red during that vegetative development, it doesn't cause some kind of downstream effect where your flowers later on will photobleach. It just doesn't work that way. The other thing that we saw was that really during flower development, there were only certain stages during that flower development that the flowers are most susceptible to bleaching. And we're at the point now where we have developed some specific schedules you can follow to use as much red as is safe and then dial red back and use a more white spectrum when those flowers are most susceptible to photobleaching. And when you follow this strategy by dynamically tuning between red and white during flowering and when you use high red during veg, now you can grow at really high PPFD and use a relatively high red content compared to just white all the time, giving you a much higher system efficacy than you would otherwise be able to get using just white. And we're talking about, if Fluence's R4 spectrum has a system efficacy of 2.7-ish, and that's what you're using, then doing a dynamic red strategy bumps that up to about 3.2. So if you pay a high utility rate, going from 2.7 to 3.2 is really going to make a big difference in your bottom line. We've also seen that it really depends from where you apply red light. And it turns out that you can apply relatively high red from the bottom of the canopy and it doesn't induce photobleaching. Our theory right now is that from the bottom of the canopy, that light is intercepted by a lot of leaves and it's really not getting to the flowers. And so the little bit of light that is getting through to the flowers is of such low flux, it's really not damaging to anything. So we've been combining this with certain top light strategies to do what we call the red sandwich. And we're going to be talking a whole lot about red sandwich in just a few days in a webinar. So if you think that's relevant to you, which, you know, if you're the one paying the utility bills at your cannabis facility, it's probably relevant to you. You should tune in. I think that's about it. I mean, honestly, we have specific thresholds that we know are bad for exceeding with red light. Unless, of course, you don't care about photo bleaching. Like maybe you're growing for extraction. If you're growing for extraction, then just use really high red, induce bleaching. Who cares? No one's going to see it. Your chemistry is not affected. And you can save a lot of money on your utilities. But whether you're growing indoor, whether you're growing in greenhouse, those thresholds where red or too much red is too much, those thresholds seem to be about the same. So if you understand how photo bleaching works in one space, it's going to be true basically in any other cultivation space you enter. There are caveats. There are some interacting factors. We know that temperature can be a thing. We're hearing rumors that nutrition can be a thing, but the jury's out on exactly how that interacts with light to induce or prevent photo bleaching. So stay tuned for more on that. Lastly, I just want to close this with the idea that our narrative has indeed changed. Someone asked me recently if Fluence lied to them about red light and white light. And they said, you know, Fluence used to be this white light company and they vilified red and it was so bad and everything. Did you guys just lie? And I said, no, we didn't lie. It's just we didn't know. This is the nature of being a company that does a lot of science. You think what you think and you make products around that. And hopefully those products are good and do a good job for everyone using them. But as with the research continues, and then we identify new ways of making new products that are even better for everyone, we're going to update our narrative, right? And that's always going to be the nature of what I do. And I hope it's always the nature of what Fluence does, right? It's a company that's led by science. And inherent to that, we will discover new things. And probably in a year from now or 2 years, I'll be making a new video saying, hey, I was a little bit wrong about that last year. Here's a new way to do things that's a little bit better. So I hope that's helpful. And if there are any specific questions you have about red light or white light in cannabis, leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to talk to it.